Kydoimos is the ninth full-length album from KAWIR. This is an Athens, Greece-based black metal band, and one that is known for dramatic, epic, folkin, and melodic black metal over the years. And it depends what decade you're in. They did start back in the early 90s, been working with some of the more classic and better known artists from that scene, typically members of Verathron or Agatis, and they were in an early death metal band that became Zemiel early on. So Thurthanax is kind of the man behind the group. He's the leader, the main songwriter, and the one who, I think he checks all the boxes to make sure the music is within the proper oeuvre for the band. And as a longtime fan, I really appreciate how well they've held together that style. Now, this record in particular is coming off of a string of about 4 of their best records. The 2010s were good to KAWIR in terms of collaborations with great artists. Brought in the folk side of it. They brought in a more epic register. They brought in these themed albums. And the last 2 records did really well to bring about the voice of the band in a very strong way that was very representative. It felt like it was underground black metal, but from an epic standpoint. And I think that's always been where KAWIR were best. And so this record is something quite different. So before I get into that, we'll cut to a song here just to show what's changed about the way they sound, and maybe that's more representative of their intent in some ways. So with the exception of Thurthanax and longtime vocalist Porphyrion, the entire lineup of the band has been restaffed, and that starts with adding keyboards from Dispater of Midnight Odyssey. The way that I would frame the inclusion of his keyboards, as well as this new drummer on this record, is it's almost got the bombast of Ancient Rites at their most over the top, but also there's a bit of Falkenbach in the way that they produce some of their folkish melodies that are driven by keyboards. Some of the songs on this record still feel like they were written in the mode of Adrastaya, their most recent record, but most of them feel like they are stepping into this newer modus, which is a little bit more abrupt. It's got a much faster pace to it. The drums are carrying this record through at a very hard and heavy pace, and the melodicism is what basically holds it all together. We get to the heart of the KAWIR sound and their melodic voice, regardless of the sound design and the people involved. The way that they enhance this experience with their performances and their inclusions a bit over the top. In a way, this feels less focused on the album as one chapter, and this feels like a representative album that brings in a lot of the style and innovation that the band has brought over the last 3 decades. There's something very satisfying about approaching this record and getting the complete thought of the band in about 50 minutes, and it doesn't all feel like 90s worship, and it doesn't all feel so modern that it loses its touch. And the way I would equate that is maybe the most recent Verathron record has this level of energy, it has this level of spirit to it, but it also harkens back to what's always been very strong about this band and their styles. As we cut to the preview tracks in this album, you'll kind of start to realize that this is the more tuneful side of the band emphasized, but also walks through a lot of just great melodies. That said, within this theme of war, it felt like they had to fit in a lot more pieces than they normally would have otherwise. And what happens on this record is that about the midpoint, as soon as we switch into side B, they fit in a couple of songs, like I said, that are a little bit more tuned to what Adrastaya was doing. And what happens is we don't go off subject at all, but it does feel like this record was maybe more extended than it needed to be, because it feels like we drop away from the keyboard-driven, bombastic side of the band on side A to something a little bit more straightforward and thrashing, and then it takes a couple of songs to get back into that mode with Ekitlaus. It does feel like there's a bit of an interruption in the middle of this record that could have been excised and cut it to a little bit more manageable 40 minutes. It all feels relevant. It all works in the full listen, and I never... it's not like I deleted the songs off of the track list. It all works together, and it's done quite well. So again, this is a big booming personality for a band like KAWIR, who have always been very thoughtful, folkin, and sincere. So it might feel like a paradigm shift for some, but it should, for longtime fans, this should feel like it reinforces a lot of what was always great about this band and builds it up to a stronger fidelity and maybe a more gripping and engaging form of what they've always done. So I'm a longtime fan. I have nothing but enthusiasm for what this band does. Of course, this is one of the better records of April, just for the sake of the strong connection that it makes with the ear, and well thought out lyrics of the record and the symbolism they've always brought to each of their albums. And I think that there's a strong level of immersion once you get used to this kind of newfound sound of the band. Basically been obsessed with their last 5 records and still hold in high regard their early stuff. I'm just a big fan of the band. There is a little bit of bias there, but I've tried to be reasonable here with the score and represent how good I think it will be to the general public or anyone just generally interested in this band. So check that out. See if this is your kind of thing. You can read my written review for more of my in-depth thoughts on the record. It releases tomorrow, April 19th, so check it out when it does.